Welcome to Lead Story, water, travel, and politics. 3 issues hitting Jamaicans where it matters most: at home, in their pockets, and at the ballot box. Tonight, the National Water Commission, NWC, adjusts its supply schedule as communities continue to navigate uneven water availability. We also examine tonight the soaring cost of flights between Jamaica and Florida, where limited seats and reduced competition are pushing airfares to eye-watering levels. And the PNP puts democratic socialism back in the spotlight as opposition leader Mark Golding invokes the legacy of Michael Manley while seeking to clarify what his vision means for Jamaica today. This is Lead Story, and I'm Tyrone Reed. Thanks so much for staying with us. Now, water rationing is being adjusted across sections of the island as the National Water Commission rolls out what is being described as a revised supply schedule effective today. Now, of course, the prohibitions are in place, which means there are certain things you can't do with the treated water from the NWC. Now, the changes come as the NWC continues to manage the limited water supplies because of the ongoing drought that is really buffeting the system. Tonight, we break down the new schedule, the communities being affected by this new schedule, and what consumers need to know about their water supply. We also seek to remind you about what you can and can't do with the water supplied by the NWC. In studio with me, Peter Clark, Managing Director of the Water Resources Authority, the WRA, and Delano Williams. He's the Corporate Public Relations Manager at the National Water Commission, NWC. Gentlemen, welcome to Lead Story. Good to have you in studio. It's always better to have you in studio. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Let's begin with you, Delano Williams.
Yes.
I'm seeing a lot of clean cars on the road.
Perhaps they're using their buckets, and we hope they're adhering to what the prohibition says. It clearly says no washing of cars with a hose among some other non-essential activities that are prohibited. And
so no washing of cars with a hose. Let's stay on that one just for a bit. So you can wash the car, but just not with a hose.
And what it means is really, as we're pressing, so I think in a number of discussions you and I had and in other spaces, we've talked about the rationale for a prohibition is to push conservation or even stricter conservation methods. It doesn't mean you are not going to use water. It says find creative ways, for instance, to repurpose water. So some persons can harness rainwater where possible. Other persons can harness untreated water, which is somewhere where some persons would have gotten creative in terms of managing their supply. In the homes, for instance, we're saying cooking, cleaning, washing, bathing, drinking. Those are the essential things. So washing and filling of pools, washing cars, filling pools, watering lawns, those are not essential. And so those are prohibited.
I know of a company that's capturing condensate from the air conditioned chillers that are on the roof.
Yes.
And they're capturing that condensate and washing their cars with it. So people are finding some creative ways to get the job done.
How bad is the situation? You're from the Water Resources Authority. For the Jamaicans looking on and might not be able to connect the dots to see how bad things are, because things are really bad, isn't it?
Well, there is a prohibition, so clearly things are bad. It all comes back down to the drought that we're in right now. The fact is that a lot of our water systems, our water supply systems are largely dependent on how rain has been falling. So if one of the land systems are depending on, for instance, river flow, for that they will capture and treat, then they will be having a problem with that particular system, because the rivers respond very quickly to the lack of rainfall. Well, there are other systems now that they have where they're pulling from wells, groundwater they're pulling from, and in those cases, those systems are a lot more robust. and a lot more stable, and have not been so affected. So in the areas where while they may have to give an area-wide prohibition, within that, some of their systems are a little bit more resilient because they're pulling from wells and so on. So the groundwater is much more stable. So
the groundwater is stable. Where we're having the difficulty right now is with the rivers.
And unfortunately for us, especially like in Kingston, our two large water reservoirs, which is the Hermitage Dam and the Mona Reservoir, are river fed. So they are automatically instantly impacted by this lack of rainfall.
Well, here is the million-dollar question.
Right.
Why are we feeding more water into these reservoirs from the underground sources?
No, it's not something that we'll be looking to do, largely because our surface sources also are impacted by evaporation. So when your water is underground, clearly it can't evaporate.
So you want to keep it there.
So you'd rather keep it there. Just think of it underground as also being reserved, a reservoir. Okay, so just think of it being reserved, and you're pulling from that directly into those systems that they can then, that the distribution network is there to supply.
We know climate change is really doing a number on all of us, the globe. But why isn't there a system that whenever the rivers run dry or start to supply less water, that there's a system that you can, let's say, and I'm just asking as a layman, pull from these underground sources just to replenish the fall off?
Well, the idea is it happens, but it doesn't happen that you pull from underground and put it into a storage reservoir. Right. They're pulling from underground, and they're shunting it around through their networks and their valving and their operation. The elements that the NWC have, they can take that groundwater and shunt it through to areas that would normally be served by say Hermitage.
So if I may just elaborate, what is so the first thing you have to establish is just the volume of water that is needed. The wells that we have access to in terms of safe water would only produce or provide a percentage of what the city needs. I think currently we are probably demanding close to 40 million gallons per day.
Yes.
The totality of the wells is perhaps 10 million of that, if so much. So the river sources that feed into the Hermitage and the Mona are substantial.
And there's so much that you can pull from the wells.
To the point that so to the point that they fill up the reservoirs plus continue to feed the city. Now that the rivers have started to dwindle, we have been able to rely on those same well sources to integrate, as he says. So for instance, we would have talked about the Beverly Hills wells. We talked about Hermitage, we talk about Long Mountain. Those are areas that we have well systems that we move the water around, hence the regulation. So some persons will get at nighttime while others will get during the daytime because of the finite volume that we have.
For those who are throwing their hands up and say every year we have to be dealing with this, is there any indication that it will get better?
Well, their work is in play right now, and again, it's really Delano's operations. But on the Rio Cobre, the content water treatment plant is being constructed as we speak. It is actually ahead of schedule. It should be finished by next year, May thereabouts, and that will bring into the overall picture an additional 15 million gallons of water, which is
per day,
which is a lot of water. So we
need about 40 million is what you say per day for
the city consumes about 40 million
per day.
Right. But to note, the shortfall now is perhaps maybe 9 million.
Right.
Oh, so that would help with the need for restrictions.
Right.
So when this is complete, the need for restrictions might be curtailed.
For some time until we're consuming more than 40 million gallons, of
Hopefully
course.
never.
But in this
we start keep over water party and these things, right? But let's go to the new restrictions, Delano, that you've had to move to. What does that look like? Who are the people being impacted? I hear people complaining about getting water, Nicodemus-like water, because it comes at night, and that's difficult for them.
Right. So a number of the areas that used to be served at nighttime have now been shifted. So for instance, Queensborough, Queensberry, Perkins, and I'm reading a few of the areas, Meadowbrook Estate, Pembroke Hall, those are normally on what we call the 6 p.m. or evening time shift. So we've shifted those locations now to daytime because, as I said, we've curtailed the drawdown from the Hermitage, and we're now using alternate sources to cover those communities. So for the downstream, what we call downstream areas that were established from July 3rd, a lot of those communities remain. Any community or space below right here where we are, Ministry of Justice, going into Halfway Tree, Waltham Park Road, Crossroads area, those remain on the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. window. We've added to that same window a set of communities such as Queensborough and its neighbors going into Kingston 20 to that same 6 a.m. because that's the time we have water available based on the alternate sources.
What about your customers in St. Catherine and other parishes? Are they also affected by this? To a large extent, not so much, but we are watching some spaces in Portmore because once the pressures drop, for instance, you have issues in Waterford, Portsmouth, going back to Bridgeport and so on. So those, especially on the weekends, we sometimes have to closely monitor those locations to ensure. What we've done is while transferring water into Kingston, we're buying additional water from a private developer to beef up the demand that is in the Portmore space. Explain to our viewers because there's a pressure problem and then there's an availability problem. Explain how the two feeds are into each other.
So availability means that you have a cup full of water, right? That's you have all that you need. Because you now have less, meaning you have a quarter cup or half cup, you're trying to pour it into a straw or so it becomes, the pressure therefore drops. So pouring a cup,
because the volume is reduced.
Because the volume also helps to push pressure, right? So getting water to even sometimes what seems like gentle slopes becomes a challenge
because of the low levels,
right? And so when you look at some of the areas, you're like Clifton, just to use an example, Clifton in St. Catherine, just a slope, you're looking at Marley Hill or those areas near Brayton Parkway. Those are gentler slopes compared to where Ken's Wildflower is. So if you had a challenge there, or to come back to the Kingston experience, Mannings Hill Road is a gentle slope compared to Halfway Tree.
Does the NWC actually save on water with these restrictions? Because if it's not there, people are going to try to hoard it when it comes in. So do you actually save anything?
Well, that's one of the things that in real terms, yes, sometimes just by the sheer availability. But we're also impressing on persons to do two things, and I want us to leave with that message this evening. One is to do your best to conserve, because the drawdown means that we are, depleting what we would ideally want to have for tomorrow. But you also need to store some water, because one of the realities is whether or not what happens when you have maybe a disruption. And we want to come, clean and talk about that. So you're scheduled for 6 p.m. this evening, but for any reason you may have a break. We may have a break. And from there, the storage that the customer has becomes useful.
I want to give the Water Resources Authority the final word, but in terms of the levels at the Hermitage Dam, Mona Reservoir,
31% today.
Yes.
As I said, we've been able to slow the rate, so we are falling by less than 1% now. On the Mona, we're at 46.
How did you manage to slow it?
Well, we've taken out, for instance, some of these communities that I spoke of.
So 31 and 46%.
Yes.
We'll give you the final word. Just tell those who are watching, listening, how best to go about navigating these difficult times.
Well, and the difficult times are here because when I've spoken to, we work closely with the Met Office, with the Met Service, Jamaica Met Service, and I mean, we're not really seeing rain on the horizon, certainly not in the next 2 weeks. Next week essential, or week is back to school, or the week after. most parents are so accustomed to the kids going out and sending them out to the umbrella very early in September. It looks like the rains maybe a little bit later.
Yes.
All right, so that's a very strong concern right there. We at the Water Resources Authority can only emphasize what it is that Delana just said, which is to conserve. The fact is that every drop that we save, every drop that we don't use becomes that amount of water available for some other time.
Absolutely. We have to leave it there because we're out of time. But as you heard there from the NWC and the Water Resources Authority, that 30-minute shower, you need to trim that down to about 3 minutes. All right, that's where we have to leave this conversation right here. We want to thank the NWC and the Water Resources Authority, their officials, for coming in. We are going to take a break right here on Lead Story. When we come back, we'll talk about the price of airline tickets. It's soaring, they say. Soon come.
Every time, peace and love in the place. Jamaica want love every time. And that if you say, and that if you do, and that the life if you live. One love, Jamaica. Peace.
The time brought to you by the Ministry of National Security and Peace is...
Want to step into a career where you can make a difference with local and international diplomas in 3 to 12 months? Register now at Distinction College and improve the City and Guild Center with locations in Ocho Rios, Kingston, Spanish Town, and the St. Elizabeth. Start day, evening, and the Saturday classes in practical nursing, geriatric nursing, phlebotomy, and early childhood education. We have the lowest fees. Also sit City and Guild's maths and English exams. Classes begin soon. Call us at 356-4167 or 749-5224.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Thanks so much for staying with us right here inside Lead Story. Now, a flight that should take less than 2 hours is now carrying a price tag of more than $3,000 US. Don't just accept, folks. The price is correct. I did say $3,000 US. Jamaicans traveling between Jamaica and Florida are facing soaring airfares, scarce seats, and in some cases, sold out flights, with one recent check finding a Montego Bay to Miami round trip priced at almost US $3,800. That's US $3,800. So what is driving the squeeze, and how long can travelers expect to pay the premium? Tonight, we examine the economics behind the soaring airfares, the impact of reduced competition, and what could bring some relief. We are now being joined by Donovan White, the Director of Tourism for the Jamaica Tourist Board, and economist Janelle McEwen, as well as Grace Chin Loy, or Lou, Senior Travel Consultant at Total Travel Jamaica. Top of the evening to all of you. Welcome to Lead Story.
Hi, good evening. Welcome. Thanks for having me anyways.
Good evening, everyone.
Indeed. Let's begin with you, Donovan White. How has this impacted the airfare? Has it impacted tourists' arrival to the country?
Well, it hasn't affected, to be honest, straightforward, hasn't affected arrivals per se, because the flights are still flying.
Bring the tags on, Mr. Producer.
Are you hearing me? Hello?
We're hearing you.
You're hearing me, right?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. I was saying that it hasn't affected the arrival of visitors to the country because the flights are still arriving, in some instances, better than 90% full, which means that there's probably one seat left on the plane. However, I think it's important that your viewers and listeners understand, the prevailing situation more clinically, because what you have is a number of market conditions that is affecting the supply of seats, air seats, that is, not just to Jamaica, but to many destinations, particularly in the Caribbean and Central America. And those include the price of fuel, which has affected the price of jet fuel, the delivery of new aircrafts by manufacturers to the airlines, which has caused a number of shortage of seats. And then that has affected the supply in a market where there is increased demand. So you have a demand and supply problem where you have more demand than you have supply, and therefore price is the resultant deficiency. So the prices that we're seeing, we believe that they're going to be short-lived, hopefully, because there is market correction coming with the adjustment of seat loads, delivery of planes in October and November for the winter tourist season, which will ease some of the supply issues. And we hope that the elasticity in the price when that supply comes back will be relaxed, and therefore prices will come back down. That's the rationale. I'm sure your economists will either agree or disagree with me, but certainly that's the rationale that we have from the airlines.
Well, let's hear whether or not Janine McKeown agrees with you. But before I go to Janine, just to be clear on what I'm getting from you, Mr. Director of Tourism, you're saying the flights are coming, and in some instances up to 90% of capacity. Are we trending above last year's numbers, around about the same, or below?
We are not trending at the same level. We are still recovering full seat loads compared to pre-Melissa period. So we for example, out of Montego Bay, we are operating on about 24% less seats than this time last year. And that's because we are also operating at about 25% less rooms last year this time. The market has had to adjust to those changes post-Melissa, and that has caused us to be operating with less seats. But even with less seats, the seats that we actually do have flying to the destination, they're flying full.
Right. So I'm still trying to, let me see if the economists can help me here. You just heard there from the Director of Tourism, and I'm still trying to connect the dots based on what the Director has said with whether or not these increased airfare prices, significant increases, whether or not it's affecting travel to Jamaica. How do you see it, Janine McKeown? We're not hearing from Janelle here. Janelle, are you there? All right. Let's turn to Grace Chinloy. Are you there, Grace Chinloy?
I am.
Yes.
I am.
You are in the travel business. You're a travel consultant.
Yes.
Talk to me. How are you seeing the numbers?
Okay, so from what we have noticed as travel agents selling tickets for all the carriers, what we have noticed is that it started around the time of, Sumfest in Ocho Rios and Montego Bay. So that was the August 1, August 6 period. We noticed there was a heavy load of travelers. Now, normally there are a lot of people that come to Montego Bay for that event, because remember it switched from Negril to Montego Bay. So we picked up on that, and then availability was a big issue. When you have an availability issue for seats, what you find is on any one aircraft, they may have 15 or 17 economy fares. So if you sell the cheaper ones and those keep selling off and you keep increasing and increasing, you will come to these horrendous figures. But that period in August was a little strange. It just seemed a little weird. You couldn't even get a seat from Kingston to Fort Lauderdale. It was crazy. You couldn't get a seat Kingston to Miami. Same thing. And the airfares, as I say, would continue to climb based on the inventory control system. So that's what we saw. I did an exercise, knowing I was coming to do this. I did an exercise, for instance, the 19th of December, Fort Lauderdale, Kingston, and go back on the 5th of January. Now, that is an extremely busy period because people that come here for Christmas have 2 weeks. The airfare right now on JetBlue is $1,353. Out of New York for the same dates, the airfare is $2,500. Now, what we do also know is JetBlue does not release all of their seats until maybe 3 or 4 months before the Christmas period. So we are hoping that when they do release the additional seats, then the fares will come down. But as I say, Christmas period is the busiest time to come here, so the fares are normally high. Not as high as what people have been reporting with the $3,800. No.
Right, which is what I wanted to ask you. Which is what I want to ask you, Grace Chinloy. You've been in the business for a minute. Have you ever seen anything like these prices?
Not regularly, no. I have seen it. For instance, even in the August period, I saw fares as high as maybe 600,000 Jamaican, Kingston, Miami, Kingston, business class, which that's not normal. It's not normal. But as I say, the fares that you start off with at the bottom of the totem pole in economy, as I say, you have like 15 different fares.
It seems as if we're losing.
Then you're stuck.
We're not hearing from Grace there so clearly. We're losing you. We're losing you there.
You know, many people weren't. What happened?
We're losing you there, Grace.
I'm not sure what's happening.
Yeah, we're losing you there. Let's see if we can sort out your connection and come back to you. That's Grace Chinloy Orelu. I hear Janelle McEwen, the economist, is back with us. Janelle, are you hearing us now?
Yes, I'm hearing you. I'm
not sure if you heard the director of tourism there when I asked whether or not these ridiculously high prices are impacting travel to Jamaica, the tourism product. And he was basically saying not necessarily so. How do you see it?
Right. So he spoke about a very important principle, which is demand and supply and price reflecting the degree of scarcity. And there's an argument about price gouging, and I'd be careful with that word that has been since Ireland, because gouging would have implied that the price is disconnected from the real condition. You know, someone taking advantage for no reason, but what we're seeing is real scarcity. And I must also introduce the fact that Spirit Airlines would have contributed significantly to this, because after their second bankruptcy and a failed federal rescue package, Spirit would have been removed from the market. And what happened is that one of the Jamaica to Florida flight was Spirit, and it happened exactly at the worst time, right as peak summer demand was building up on top of that. So Spirit low fares used to keep the other airlines in check. So that missing now is also a contributing factor that we're looking at here. So if we also look at tourism indirectly.
I want you to hold that thought for me, Jenny McEwen. We're going to come back with it. You're talking about tourism. You're about to make a comment on that. But we're going to take those remarks when we come back from this break. Soon come.
time, peace and love in the place. Jamaica want love every time. And that if you say, that if you do, and that the life if you live. One love, Jamaica. Peace.
The time brought to you by the Ministry of National Security and Peace is...
Attention government pensioners. The Accountant General's Department's Life Certificate Drive is coming your way. Look out for us on the following dates. Tuesday, September 1, Morant Villas in St. Thomas. Wednesday, September 2, St. James Methodist Church in Clarendon. Thursday, September 3, Hanover Parish Library. Friday, September 4, Westmoreland Parish Library. Saturday, September 5, Greater Portmore Branch Library. Monday, September 7, St. Mary Parish Library. Tuesday, September 8, St. Anne Parish Library. Wednesday, September 9, Trelawney Parish Library. Thursday, September 10, Portland Parish Library. Friday, September 11th, St. Matthew's Anglican Church in St. Elizabeth, and on Saturday, September 12th, at the St. Catherine Parish Library in Spanish Town. Remember, drop boxes are also available at parish libraries in Hanover, St. James, Portland, Westmoreland, and Manchester. Follow our social media pages and the press for more details.
Hi, I am Candy Pang.
Watagwan.
Watagwan.
Datagwan pa.
Watagwan.
Watagwan. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
Datagwan pa. Watagwan.
Thanks so much for staying with us right here inside Lead Store. We're talking about these ridiculously high airfares that are soaring, as some would put it. Still with me, Donovan White. He's the Director of Tourism at the JTB. We have economist Janelle McEwen and travel agent at Total Travel Jamaica, Grace Chinloy Orilu. Thank you so much for sticking and staying with us. Before we went to the break, Janelle McEwen, you wanted to make a point about tourism in Jamaica in relation to the prices that we're looking at.
Right, and what I wanted to say that indirectly, I believe it could hurt tourism, and people often miss this connection because the same aircraft flying Montego Bay to Miami, turns around and flies Miami to Montego Bay. And airlines are cautious about adding outbound capacity, are usually cautious about inbound capacity too. So, especially while they're still watching hotel room recovery, as Dr. As the director would have spoken about. So, if you look at the fact that we're still recovering from Hurricane Melissa, you can, for example, rebuild every hotel room on the North Coast, but if it costs $3,000 to get on a plane, some of those rooms will still sit empty, I believe.
Mr. Tourism Director?
So, Joel made a very good point about Spirit, but let me also just add some context to that, because it's important to always make sure clarity is provided. Spirit, when they removed their service, contributed less than 4% of the total air seat capacity to Jamaica, as they were only down to one gateway at that time, which is Fort Lauderdale. And so the impact of Spirit is not so greatly felt. Where the real impact is, I alluded to earlier, and let me be more specific now, is that the rate of our room recovery at still being 25% below what it was this time last year has affected the supply of seats, in addition to some of the other reasons I've given, including the airlines just doesn't have enough plane to fly. Even if they wanted to add more seats because the demand is significantly more than anticipated, they simply don't have the planes to add to the routes. That's one. The point Ms. Chinloy made about dynamic pricing of airline tickets is another one. So whilst you may see fares for $3,800 or $3,500 or whatever the figure is, that's not the average price of the seat. The average price of the seat is still somewhere around about $600 per seat when you take into consideration all price ranges and packages of prices for seats on the plane. So what you're seeing is the last minute
set of seats that are less, the last 5 or 6 or 7 seats that are left on the plane, that you have maybe 40 people trying to search for a seat for 6. So that's part of that challenge. But as I said before, you know, the impact is felt if come December, January, February, we have improved our room capacity, our room availability capacity, our inventory, and we're still having the same problem with air capacity.
And you don't foresee that it would continue beyond up to that point? You don't foresee that?
This is not the conversation or the information we have. We speak to the airline almost weekly, all of them, not just from the United States, but from right around the world. And we have an ongoing cadence with them where we are constantly looking and reviewing the demand and supply, and they're looking at opportunities to grow, to continue to grow with us and to return capacity to its normal flow in line with availability of inventory.
All right, we heard you from the tourism director that these astronomical numbers that we're seeing, these figures, it's not the average. It's not really representative of the average cost of a flight. He says the average cost is around US $600. Grace Shinloy, Aurelio, I think I'm getting your last name wrong, Miss Shinloy. Could you pronounce it for us?
As everybody does, so don't feel alone. My name is pronounced Aurelio.
Aurelio.
But it's okay.
All right, Aurelio. All right, we'll get it, Miss. All right, Aurelio, we've got it. So is that your experience based on what you just heard here from the tourism director? Is the average cost of the plane ticket about US $600?
Okay, so it depends on where they're coming from. If you're coming from Fort Lauderdale, it can be as low as 4. You're coming from New York, it can be 6. So as he agreed with me that it's an inventory controlled offering, that is the key. So once the flight, and what threw us in Kingston was that Kingston doesn't normally have this kind of availability issue that we experienced from about the 4th, 5th, 6th of August. We don't normally have that. Into Montego Bay, yes, we would expect that because they're coming for all the various parties and weekends and all of the offerings that the North Coast has. So this was a little tricky for us because we're saying, what has caused all of this? And Spirit never flew into Kingston, so that didn't affect us. So it was just Kingston, it was just American and JetBlue and Delta. Anything going on was a problem, even as far as Toronto. We were having that issue.
You used a phrase just now that I'm going to ask you to. It sounds like industry speaks. I'm going to ask you to break it down for those of us who might not be familiar with it. You mentioned that the JTB director, the director of tourism, mentioned it. Inventory. What's that phrase you used? And if you could explain what that means.
Okay, well, I had said it first, and then he was saying he agreed with me. So what you find on the airlines, every airline does this.
Could you tell us the phrase first and then tell us what it means?
No, I'm gonna explain it.
Yes.
I'm gonna explain it first. So every airline has 15 or 17 different airfares, and what is called inventory controlled. Now, what that means is that they use a particular letter to be associated with an airfare. So say, for instance, the airfare starts at $200, and the inventory is the letter Q. Once those, say, 20 seats at Q are sold, then they increase it by way $50 or $100, and you may have to sell L. That's what they call inventory. Every seat is not sold at the same price. It's inventory controlled and controlled by a letter. That
doesn't sound fair, Janelle McEwen.
The economic terminology is in pricing is called dynamic pricing. It's not uncommon. The same thing applies for hotel inventory and for several other business segments outside of travel and tourism, where dynamic pricing is used to manage inventory pricing as well as profitability. That's just business on the pricing side of business, my friend. It's not uncommon.
Well, I hear you on it, Mr. Tourism Director. But Johnny McEwen, that hardly sounds fair. And I think I saw a congressman or a senator grilling some airline owners over this very thing about how they go about pricing these tickets and having people paying for the same seat, varying prices for the same category of tickets, and basically telling them that it was unfair to the public. Johnny McEwen, how do you see this?
Well, when you look at it outwards, you look at it and you say it can be seen as unfair. But I'll agree with Mr. White as it relates to dynamic pricing. It is our interest to make a profit. So this kind of pricing is also to stay afloat, because as he made mention of earlier about the price of jet fuel increasing and all of those costs, these dynamic pricing, yes, we can argue that these airlines make billions of dollars in profit. This dynamic pricing is not unique just to airlines. So it is something that works. Yes, we can argue that there can be a change, or there can be more ethical.
No, or to the point, the argument, it's not that it's unfair, it's unethical. Let's talk about that, Jenny. Is it unethical, what they're doing?
It is unethical, given that most of these airlines are recording billions of dollars in profit, and these dynamic pricing, I don't think it's ever relaxed to any extent to really benefit consumers.
So they are not struggling. These are not struggling entities that are trying to find their way. Which takes me to Jenny McEwen, which I want to hear you on. What is in the industry called the rocket and feather effect, I think. When the prices go up, it's added on to the customer quite quickly as a rocket takes off. But when those same prices come down, those components, that contribute to the pricing, it's like a feather falling from the air. That is what we're looking at, isn't it?
Right, and yes, we're seeing these rocketing as it relates to the price on the consumer, but as Mr. White was explaining, that in the December period or the winter period, we should expect some, as you made mention of the feathery effect, we should expect to see prices increasing, given that the Breeze Airways coming, I think December 19, along with Southwest adding a few more flights. So yes, it's normally how it works, and a lot of times we watch the Congress in America, we see where they are literally grilled about these practices, which many of times it is unfair to consumers given the amount of profit these airlines are making.
Mr. Tourism,
Mike,
I'd actually love to hear you on that, Donovan White, about the fairness of it. I'd love to hear you on it. So please, come in. I'll give you the final word.
The point I was going to make is that this challenge that we are seeing as it relates to ticket pricing and Jamaica in the last couple of weeks, obviously is exacerbated by the fact that Jamaica has been significantly in demand because of the high level of activities and events that people want to travel for. That's one. But be not mistaken about it. Airfare prices have gone up greater than 40 and 50, 60% to places like the Dom Rep, Mexico, Barbados, Antigua in the last 3 weeks as well. And so while it may not have reached the peak of $3,800 on some of the price and on some of the ticket prices, the prices for those tickets are also in the thousands. So there is a real issue where that is concerned.
I'm out of time, Donovan White, but I know this is a difficult one for you, but I'm going to insist upon an answer. Is it unethical, unfair to the traveling public what some of these airlines are doing in terms of the pricing?
Unfair, I would border on making a call on whether it's unethical. Unfair, I would say, I think that margins are over the top as it relates to profitability. And there is more that the airline can do to control some of these dynamic pricing peaks than they're doing currently.
We have to leave it there, but I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be with us. A very, very important conversation. Donovan White, Director of Tourism, Janelle McEwen, Economist, and Grace Chinloy Aurelio, Senior Travel Consultant at Total Travel Jamaica. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate the time and the thoughts.
No problem at all. Anytime.
Indeed.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, this is the lead story. We take the break right here, the final break for this evening's edition of the program. When we come back, we're going to talk politics, democratic socialism in particular. Soon come.
Students, as we begin this exciting new school year, I want to take a moment to welcome you all back and to remind you how important it is to do your part to keep yourselves and your friends safe this year. School is a place for learning, growing, and having fun with your friends. But remember, it's also a place where you need to stay alert and look out for each other. Here are a few simple tips to help keep you safe. Be aware of your surroundings when traveling. Keep your phones, technological devices, and money out of sight. Walk in groups. Avoid isolated paths and be cautious of strangers. Always inform your parents or guardians of your whereabouts. If you're experiencing bullying or if you see others being bullied, report it to your parents or teachers. If something about a situation doesn't feel right, or if someone makes you uncomfortable, trust your instincts and tell a trusted adult. And remember, if you ever need help, or if you know a friend or classmate who does, you can always call us at the Child Protection and Family Services Agency on our 211 Child Abuse Hotline. We're here for you. Have a fantastic school year. Stay safe and take care of each other.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. This is Lead Story. I'm Tyron Reed. Now, the PNP is putting democratic socialism back in the spotlight. Opposition leader Mark Golding is embracing the philosophy of former Prime Minister Michael Manley, vowing to build on his legacy and place ordinary Jamaicans at the center of economic development. But the move is already drawing criticism from the Jamaica Labour Party, raising questions about what a return to democratic socialism could mean for Jamaica. However, today Mark Golding sought to set the record straight, or recently that is, rejecting what he calls a misleading interpretation of his comments on democratic socialism. In a social media statement, Golding says his vision is not about demonizing business, but about making government business and the Jamaican people partners in economic development. Let's have a listen.
The pressures are back to school. A year ago, Labour had called election in a back to school week. And the first and the second time into that. You know, because I know the pressure the people under. Mothers worrying how they're going to send them to school. How they're going to make out this book list. And the bag and the uniform and all of that. I want to come by night. Not a little man, because more time is all in a SUV, a big trousers man as Dr. Angela Brown Merkel car them. You know? And come in the community and run some money upon the people and say don't vote. and people can take the money. I don't think they go on. Yeah, man. So that's why, you know, it's a cynical use of power still. But it's that we're up against. That's why when they say, we're going to take it by force. A serious thing. The force of which we speak is the power of the people. Yeah, but we're not talking about badness and everything. No. PNP said the word is love. But the power of the people is a mighty power. And we're not afraid of nobody. We're going to take it to them because our causes are just cause. Our movement is a movement that was created to lead Jamaica out of bondage, out of colonialism, out of separation. And when you look around the world now, you see what's happening in the United States. You can imagine that democratic socialism is on the rise in the United States of America. You can imagine that. Things and times changing. Yeah, man, because people say that we need government that looks after the interests of the people. Because the world has a lot of power vested in people who are looking after themselves and those who support them. And that is why you need a party that is committed to the upliftment of the people. And that is our mission.
All right, the voice there of PNP President and Opposition Leader Mark Golding. We're now being joined by political commentators Dr. Nadine Spence and Kevin O'Brien Chang. Top of the evening to both of you. Welcome to Lead Story. Let me begin with you, Nadine Spence. Is Mark Golding there promising a return to democratic socialism? He did make a point about democratic socialism being on the rise in the United States. Do you think that's true? Is it a fair assessment to say he's saying let's return to democratic socialism?
I think because of the political realities in the United States in respect of Donald Trump and his politics, there are some pushback against Trump that is coming from the left in the Democratic Party, and I think the kind of support that those politicians, Mamdani and others, have been getting would indicate to some that the leftist ideologies, or those people who are dissatisfied with this idea of how the capitalist economy is working and this idea of the imposition of conservative politics on the people, that there are people who are dissatisfied with that kind of politics, and rightly so, but those realities are pertinent to the American situation and the situation that is emerging in the United States, or that has emerged in the United States.
Let me see if I can bring Kevin O'Brien Chang in quickly, because we're quickly running out of time. Kevin O'Brien Chang, do you think Mark Golding is saying let's make a retreat to democratic socialism? Do you think that's a fair assessment of what he has said?
Well, he certainly alluded to it, and buzzwords in politics, when you say them, you know what you're saying. But the puzzle for the PNP, I've always wondered, which Michael Manley, when he came back in 1989, he repudiated democratic socialism. And he gave you a quote: when you're younger, you believe the problems are easier to solve. You feel the sheer weight of your enthusiasm and sincerity will sweep all obstacles before you. But the trick about maturity and growing in leadership is how fast you learn from your mistakes and learn from experience. He essentially said democratic socialism was a mistake, and in the 89 to 93, he liberalized the Jamaican economy. He was the greatest liberalizer we have had. So it's a great puzzle, but the PNP don't know their own history. And Michael Manley, he was in the 70s a democratic socialist, and he basically said it was a mistake. And his vision of equality, which is why Jamaicans revere him, and opportunity never changed. But he realized the way to do it was not democratic socialism, and he said it very openly.
We have less than a minute for both of you. In that clip, we also heard Mark Goling saying, we don't afraid of nobody. Whenever our politicians talk like that, given our political past and when it comes to violence, Dr. Spence, it makes me nervous when I hear our politicians speak like that. Am I alone in that?
No, you're not. But at the same time, I think he's just trying to position himself as a serious politician as opposed to somebody who's just talking off the top of his head. I don't think they even understand the gravity of those statements when they make them. I think they're just, it's political showmanship.
Yeah, and that is what can be dangerous. I'm all the time. Well, let me ask Kevin O'Brien Chang to comment on that as well. Kevin O'Brien Chang, those remarks, should we try to do away with them from our politics?
Yeah, I said it before. Jungle is hard to the PNP. It's not good for the country. Our murder rate is down 65% in 3 years. We don't want any politician saying anything that might encourage violence. No, irresponsible.
Kevin O'Brien Chang, Dr. Nadine Spence, thanks to both of you for joining us. And of course, we'd love to have you back to talk some more politics one day soon. All right? Thanks to both of you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
All right, that's where we have to leave it for today's edition of the program. On behalf of all of us here, I'm Tyron Reed saying have a good evening. At the top of the hour, the best news in the country, CVM News.
Delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yes. Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Watch Walking on the Word with Apostle Prof.